deeply committed, but she has huge priorities she's dealing with right now, and we understand that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So welcome, everybody. So what we're going to talk about today is just have a discussion, because the last time we talked, I shared the design of the change management assessment tool, which is our thing that we're trying to finalize. So when we had a meeting last time, we asked folks to provide proposed edits and changes, and the agenda for today's meeting was planned to be about these proposed changes. I have not received any changes that people would like to make, so I thought what we could do today is just quickly look at these things, and if you find something that is profoundly repulsive and just awful, then yeah, let's get rid of it, let's change it. But if we don't find something that's very that's really has a serious problem, it's not about wordsmithing now. It's really just saying that do any of these things not belong here, or it's wrong. So I will share my screen, and we will go through these things, and I don't imagine we would need a full hour, but just to kind of see what people, how people feel about these, and it is just 5 categories, and I'll share my screen in one moment. And Scott, please, interrupt me. So let me know, is this legible, or do I need to zoom in?
Zoom in a little bit.
Yeah, it's good if you zoom in a little bit. Even when I increase it on my screen, that looks better.
Is this better? Okay. So there are 5 categories: leadership and vision, communication, change process, employee skills and capacity, and executing change. And the idea is that when we would implement this assessment, that it would give us some sense of change readiness or maturity. And I will go through and look at each one of these things, and we'll look at questions and then see how you feel about these questions, whether we should be changing them or not. So let's start here with the leadership and vision.
And
So
Cello,
yes,
you might just scroll up slightly, and explain that there's a scale that applies to these.
yes. So if you see this, each one of these are statements, and then the answer scale that comes up as options is from strongly disagree to strongly agree. We used to have a don't know, but I figured out that we figured out that if somebody doesn't say anything, it'll be the same as I don't know. So we'll be able to count it, but we're not going to kind of distort the Likert scale, which is traditionally from strongly disagree to strongly agree. Scott, did you want to mention something?
No, that's excellent. I just thought that was a good part of the overview. And you said these were positive statements. They're almost like, if you were really ready to go implement a specific change, this isn't, normally an organization-wide assessment. It's related to a specific change that you're proposing to do, a specific improvement. Then these are the statements. And if you scored strongly agree, then it looks like you'd be all set, good to go. If you strongly disagreed or disagreed, then this would be an area for you to perhaps work on before you go implement that change.
Yes. So let's look at the statements under leadership and vision. So the first statement, these are the statements that one would, agree or disagree with. Sorry about this. So the first one is there is a clear vision for this change. Then there's a compelling rationale for this change. It's always for a specific change. There is evidence and actions that show that leadership supports this change. There is a strong sense of urgency for this change, and we have a history of successful change in this organization. Do any of these seem to you as something that would, that would be objectionable or that could be improved?
So this is Alice. My only question is there is a strong sense of urgency for this change. I'm just wondering in my mind, do you mean among leadership or among everybody involved in the change? That it seems a little ambiguous to me.
Okay. What would you think would improve it?
Well, if this is a question, if this is in the category of leadership, I would say maybe there's a strong sense of urgency among leadership for this change or something like that.
Yeah, that could work. Because there will be, like you say, Alice, there will be other categories that will deal with engagement of others. We could come back to this if we don't think that that's sufficiently covered.
Okay. So does that sound good? Does that sound better? Does anybody have any other thoughts? Okay. We'll move on to the next one. And next one is communication. So this is kind of communication with stakeholders. So all stakeholders have been identified and included in this change. Should I read these or just?
We like the way you read.
Oh, sure.
It allows people to think about it as you're saying it, maybe. It's okay.
Okay. And then stakeholders have a clear understanding of the roadmap to achieve the vision. Stakeholders understand what this change means to them. A communication strategy is in place to inform stakeholders and receive their input. All questions and issues are addressed and communicated back. Let me see, I can improve the visibility this way. Give me just a second so we can have just one page. Give me just a minute so that way you can see all 5 statements. Is this a little better?
For me, it's a little bit worse because some of the, oh, okay, yeah. Now that you've made it taller, it's working better.
Yeah, so I'll make it taller. So that you can see all 5 of them. Give me just a second. And the last one. Okay, so this is the one for communication. So we can look at them and see.
Hey, Cello, this is Mike. I only have one kind of overarching comment here. And I guess my question is, would some of these sections is this change readiness assessment designed to be given all at once towards the beginning? Because some of this stuff, I would say probably, I can see a few of them that seem like they're premature as far as questioning. Like some of this stuff you wouldn't know the answers to a lot of it.
Okay.
Even if your organization was really good at change management, it seems like there's some of the stuff that would come down the road.
Okay.
Mike, maybe I could respond
Sure.
quickly, is that it's anticipated, yeah, there you go, that this would be done after you've identified what the improvement is, that you've basically gone through the business process, the technology, even potentially the people side assessments. And so you would have actually had a lot of communication with the stakeholders about what is being proposed. And so this is just almost a final check in a way to make sure that you're actually ready to implement the change that you've spent probably at least a couple workshops going through.
Is this helpful
Perfect.
at,
Yeah,
at
yeah,
all?
yeah, that helps for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, so this shows the overall map. So we have, the process to do preliminary planning, to select the business process, to identify the stakeholders, then look at, what is this business process like, to actually develop, document, put together a business process model, to assess the technology, so that by the time, and then to assess the people and workforce issues. So all these things would be kind of looked at, and then as it change management will come after we've looked at the people and processes and kind of define the change, so that as we're defining and if the required improvements and preparing a plan, that's when we would conduct this. Does this make sense, Michael?
Absolutely. Yeah, I had this weird impression that it was coming way earlier in the process, but the questions all make sense given where it fits in here on this diagram.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, so it's kind of the last one in sequence. So thank you for the question. So this is for communication, and if you can see this clearly, it's whether we've identified and included these stakeholders, whether they have a clear understanding of the roadmap, whether they understand what this change means to them individually, and the communication strategies in place to inform stakeholders and receive their input. So, there's some process there, and all stakeholders understand what they need to do to implement and sustain this change. So this is in the communication piece. Any questions on the, I cannot see Scott, I cannot see the chat line and stuff. So
Yeah, no one has any things, but I would mention that one would generally assume that even though you go through that process flow that Cello described, that there are still going to be some gaps that would be identified. For example, it may not have dealt with that last question. All stakeholders understand what they need to do to implement and sustain this change. So you might not have come up with a specific work plan that includes what everybody's supposed to do to implement the change. They may understand what it's about, and so Cello will get to, there's sort of a report that comes out of this that will allow you to see what the gaps are. So if you find that you're scoring, you strongly disagree with the statement that you understand and you're prepared to go, then that means that you need to spend more time on it and go figure that out. But hopefully a lot of these things would have been covered in the pre-work that you've done leading up to this readiness tool.
Okay, so I will move to the next category, which is the change process. Do we have a process in place for change? And then organizational policies, rules, and processes have been reviewed and they're amended to support this initiative, so we wouldn't be breaking any rules or policies. Related projects have been identified and incorporated into the change process. There is clear authority and accountability for this change. There's a clear project structure for keeping change on track, and sufficient time has been allowed to implement the change. So I'll just pause a little bit and see if people have any thoughts on this.
Just one like very nitpicky one is there's a clear project structure for keeping this change on track.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yes,
Great.
good catch, good catch. Okay. So the next one is employee skills and capacity. Sufficient resources are in place to effectively implement and sustain the change. The existing job descriptions will be modified to support the change if necessary. That was a good point. I'll keep changing this. To emphasize. Okay.
So going back,
Okay.
you left off, yeah. No, but you managers and staff, you didn't actually read it, or we couldn't hear you.
Oh, managers and staff have the skills needed to be successful at implementing and sustaining this change. Current compensation, appraisal, and career development processes are sufficient to support this change, but will be modified if necessary. And staff are being given adequate training to achieve the new skills and behaviors needed to be successful.
That next to last one confuses me a little because you're saying the but I think needs to be or instead. Does that make sense to anybody else?
Okay, so I still haven't dialed in my equipment properly. I don't have headphones yet. And so if you could maybe just repeat what you said, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. I think I'm just a little confused by this. It's saying like all of our compensation, appraisal, and development are good, but we'll modify it, which sounds weird to me. So I think but should be or. It's either already good or it will be modified if
good.
necessary.
Yeah, or will be modified if necessary. Good. That's a good one.
Okay, thank you.
We're glad you showed up, Alice.
My editing that coming out here.
No, it's good. It's good. It's all good.
Yeah.
So, and let's look at the last one, and then we'll go through and see how one would actually work with this. So this is about execution, and its employees are encouraged and provided a platform to give constructive feedback on the changes being made. Barriers to successful change have been identified and addressed. The desired level of cross-functional cooperation is in place for this change to take place. A performance management system and metrics are in place to help assure successful change, and processes and technologies are in place to manage emerging issues and problems effectively and in a timely manner. And we will be able to answer these questions based on the previous surveys or previous steps that we've taken. We could look at the results. And this is the last category.
So that last one, I would make that specific to this change also, because otherwise I can see people thinking like my organization in general has a way to
manage,
address emerging issues. So let's see, emerging issues and problems with this. Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Yeah, you're good point. So if we've done this, if I've done this correctly, this should have been reflected. Let me zoom in. So if you look at the last question here, you see that now it says with this change. So the design page, these blue things, individual pages, the design page, once you change the design page, it impacts that. So here is where you would, okay, where you, I know I cannot make this bigger, I don't think, but basically this is, you know, where you would provide your answers. And then we have, this is the last one for executing change. And then we have a summary that basically just shows you how things map out, that where you may have issues and stuff like that. It's difficult to make one. I can zoom in a little bit.
So the red, for example, is strongly disagree questions, and so you could, I mean, these could be put in order in a way, Cello. So
What do you mean? They are in
Well,
order of the questions.
of the question, right? You know, you may not want to do this, but another screenshot could be, you want to see all the strongly disagree things together and all the,
Oh yeah, I can totally. This was just a
Yep.
first idea. We could, the reporting can be done in different ways.
Yep.
Definitely. Yeah, and I'll add a couple of pages. For example, for the, I'm sorry, not this one. The on this one, I can show you how, you know, it's just, I'm a little bit further ahead with that one. And so I'm testing different ways to organize the answers, and whether to have these types of charts and to have, you know, how to consolidate it. So there will be some summary pages. I'm trying to figure out between this chart and this chart, and just kind of work in progress. But the critically important stuff, which is the questions, it would be good if we, excuse me, define the questions so that I can then proceed to build the reports and everything without having to, you know, rather than build reports and then come back and fix and change and stuff like that. Do colors make sense to you as well, or?
I mean, red and pink seem like the ones that, or neutral, ones that you might focus on for further work. And the green ones look like, things are more on track, right?
I was about to ask, were the colors symbolic, or do they suggest, is there, you know?
I'm sorry, I apologize. Could you ask again, because I'm having, I don't have my headphones.
I was just curious to know, it may not matter at all. I was curious to know if the colors were symbolic of anything. Was the red a high priority? Is the green, gold?
Yes, excellent question.
Yellow?
This is what they indicate. Sorry. This is the answer scale. So they're mapped to these answers. Since all of these questions, not all of these statements are positive. So if you strongly disagree, it would be a red. If you strongly disagree with the statement that all stakeholders have been identified, or there is a compelling rationale for this change, then it would be green. If you said stop, it would be intensive green. And if you strongly disagreed with some of these statements, then it would be that red color. So we wanted to make it consistent, so all the statements are positive. And so if the answers, if we come to the, let me see, if we come to these, it means that they were strongly disagreeing with the statement that says there is evidence and actions that show that leadership supports this change. So you kind of know where the, if they strongly disagree with that, you kind of know where the squeaky parts are. And I did not choose these answers. I just chose them so I can track whether, the colors and the formatting and everything is lined up properly. So this is just a dashboard. So you wouldn't be this, I would lock this down. And here is where you would have the ability to change. And, if you strongly agree, then it'll be, look like dark green. Does that help answer your question? Yeah, so the idea was that when you look here, you're saying, okay, well, where do I have trouble? It's just it's kind of random that these ones in the strong are in the middle. It's just how I was stating, it's just how I was testing things. That's all.
So, I agree that this is a good way to look at it, and certainly we focus on the red ones, but, with all of these, for me, it's really useful to see also the range of answers. For example, a yellow could mean everybody chose neutral, or it could mean half the people chose strongly agree and half chose strongly disagree. And to me, I would look at a yellow very differently if it was, half and half, and there's a lot of disagreement versus everybody agrees we're neutral.
Yes, that is completely true. So the way, what I was planning to in the next generation, in the next thing, is that when you would click on one of these things, that it would give you a breakdown.
That's perfect. Yes.
Yeah, so that it would show you all the answers for that specific one, because I don't know how to build a graph. If you have any ideas of how to, because we have 5 by 5, so it's 25 items, how to represent 25 ranges in a smarter way, I can definitely, I can work. Yes, Scott?
So Alice, there are a couple ways. This was also potentially to be done in a workshop where it could be that you have individual answers to these. Or it could be, if you had a small group, for example, that you would basically discuss the item and come up with a consensus of what it is, and if there were any follow-up actions that were necessary. So, maybe the tool would have the flexibility to, show a range if there is a range, but it's possible that there's only one answer that 4 people that are doing this come up with. It depends on kind of your stakeholder group and it's and whether you want to maintain confidentiality or not. I know that when we had this discussion before, I know that the Baltimore folks were saying they wanted people to they have a lot of discussion around these items. So, there are choices in terms of what the guidelines for how to go about this exercise would be.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Scott. Yeah, thanks. Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, the statistical things only matter when you have a large number of people, obviously. The one thing I did want to say is I think the tool that you guys have used before, and was it Miro? I forget. It was one of those where we voted individually and it showed like this nice little, like,
yes,
almost like mountain profile. I liked that.
Yes. What another thing, it's Mentimeter. And so what the reason that I wanted us to first fix this is because we can have we can have a combination. Let's say that we have 10 people in the room. what we can do is we can post these 5 questions. I actually have one already in the Mentimeter as an example. And you could just, put this statement here and ask people, well, how do you feel about, let's say at the beginning of the meeting. You could just, and Mentimeter is anonymous. So if they're on their phone, you put this statement up, there is a clear vision, and you say, well, and you can show on the screen the Mentimeter, this, and then they can say disagree strongly, and all that. And you could see the breakdown live. So definitely, if you would like, you can use Mentimeter in combination with this, but it would not be practical to try to do this in Excel. However, Mentimeter results could be then pulled in if you wanted to have it in a report. Does that make sense, or am I getting too technical?
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Vancouver, I think it was Vancouver, made the same point that you did and said that in their case, they would want it to be initially be confidential so that people wouldn't hold back on their answers and that kind of thing. But the way that you'd want to do that was probably the combination that Cello's talking about.
So I think that I can, there's a couple of weeks before our next meeting. So what I would propose is we can actually simulate a session like this and just go through and pretend that we're in a workshop so you can see how it would work. Would that be helpful?
Somebody speak up.
I would say sure, yes.
Okay. Okay. So for next time, then I will, what we can do next time is select, let's say, one of these things, or even more, and just go through the exercise just like if we're in a facilitated session, and then see if that resonates with people. And to make it not too dense, we can just select a couple so we don't go through 25 things. So we can start, which ones would you like to do out of these 5? What do you think would be the best ones to select?
May not matter a lot, Cello.
Okay. Okay.
Just pick a couple, and then of course everyone will give different answers, and then we'll see, what it tells us, and
Yeah.
what a report, how a report shows up.
Yeah, and I can give you some assistance in this, and I can certainly provide the spreadsheet and stuff like that. When it comes to Mentimeter, you might benefit from if you have somebody in-house who knows how to deal with Mentimeter, because it wouldn't be practical if I have to be, in these meetings. But I can certainly show you how to do it, and if somebody, on your team is supporting you, I can work with whoever to help them navigate, give them the questions, show them how to do it so that it would match these questions.
Yeah, that's the overall approach, is not to have the project team basically run this, but basically put each utility in a position to be trained and know how to use these tools, and to facilitate those sessions. So Cello's role, with my help, and is just to make sure that you're prepared to do that.
Yes, when Scott says project team, he means WISE project team, not your project team on your specific change management, that or your change management team or project team or everything. Are there any questions? Let me see. I'm gonna just stop sharing and see if there are any more questions or things that I can clarify. Anything that you'd like me to change? How about this? If you have any thoughts, I will post a video. If you have any additional thoughts, if you have ideas you'd like to, improve, for me to improve things or make changes, just send me an email. Just send me an email and we'll do it. And what we're gonna do next time is, if you have a real example that we should simulate, let me know. So we don't have a theoretical thing that we're working on. But you say, okay, let's say we want to change our procurement so that, people who work in procurement get performance pay, Yes, Patrick.
Yes, the question that I have, or the thought that I have, when Scott said, put the red together, the green together, I think that's pretty smart, right? Because then you can see all the strongly disagree together. And I'm just bringing that up because I've been thinking about it since Scott mentioned it. And I think that would be a smart idea.
Okay.
So if someone doesn't come, good comment. If someone doesn't offer a specific change, then we'll come up with a change and describe what the change is, and then do the readiness. And it'll all be hypothetical, of course, but it'd be good to be thinking about a specific change as you're going through this, rather than just the generic statements that are provided.
Okay. All right. So I think that would be, something to look forward to next time, to have a simulation. If you can let people know, we're going to actually get busy with using this tool, and then I'll work on some dashboards based on the ideas I heard today, so that we can have something fun to look at. And if you'd like to get more background on, let me just quickly go back to this. Give me just 1 second. If you would like to this is the business process and technology one. If you'd like to learn, we were talking about, can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Yeah, we were talking about this today. If you'd like to more about this, which is a completely different thing, it's in Microsoft Forms, or these two are combined in this spreadsheet, let me know, because the information that you would gather from these things, and it's really not rocket science, it's just a structure for doing due diligence. And then we can make sure that you're aware of the context of where this specific item assessment method takes place. Anything else that you'd like to mention or
I was late getting in. This is Marco, and I am appreciative for the information that's been shared about the conference in September. So we're putting our heads together to enable how we will be present and participating. And I also, this is just by way of sharing today. This is a change for us in terms of management here in Baltimore at DPW. If it has not been shared, we're on the threshold in just the next hour of hosting an open house on the executive management level of the building, on the where the headquarters is. And so this is an open house agency-wide to just have folk come to meet, because so many of us don't know one another and we don't know many of the employees. So this is just an house activity and entertaining and hosting folk just to say hello, to lay eyes on folk. And they're going to finally see that I'm not 7 feet tall. But But this is just one of the things that we're doing that is for sure, while it is certainly not an organizational SOP or policy or whatever you want to call it, a guideline, but it is necessary to enable the kinds of changes and modifications and engagement that we want in this agency. So this is one of the things that we're starting. And this is, Utility Week. This is Public Utility Week here. So this just makes sense.
Are you inviting us to come, Marco?
Fly right on over. I will keep the treats and stuff for you. We'll put them on ice.
That's great.
Mark is only saying this because he's knowing I'm in Croatia and I can't make it. If there was any chance that I could make it, he would say, I don't want that disruptive character around my people here.
You can't say that to an equity officer. Remember, diversity, equity, and inclusion are high up on my radar. So that would not be the truth at all. So, well, anyway, Gaines knows. So Gaines knows in my world. So I'm going to go off script. So there are like only two kinds of lies in my world. So there are two lies and damn lies. So that would not be a true lie. Everybody would be welcome, and so I'm glad that you have traveled safely, Cello.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm envious, but I'm glad that you're safe and well. And for some reason, I don't want you to be enjoying yourself there, so you can get back here.
Okay. Okay, everybody. Any other thoughts? I'm going to stop the recording now, and